if you're your own individuals, like I've just showed you how you are, that you come here even right, then you got to say to yourself, as an individual, why don't? If I believe in God and believe, the only way I know from God is His heart. Because if we didn't have His heart, we wouldn't know about God. So if I believe in God then why in the world don't I keep Shabbos? Because that is, it's one of the major, it's the foundation of Jewish life. Is saying on the seventh day, I don't even give a damn what the Orioles do, although I know they lost. But it's like saying I don't care what happens. I don't care about Sports Saturday. I don't care about the yard sale next door. It's the shot. It's my day to close my doors and say, "Well, I got something to do." Is that on tape? When you go home next week, why won't you keep Shabbos?
Chances are I probably will.
Your family will. Well, next time your family's not around, why won't you keep Shabbos? See, it's easy for guys like all the kids who keep Shabbos, like, Rebecca. Well, I wouldn't say it's easy for them. It's just kind of habit forming. It is for me. But I like to take time, say 45 minutes before Shabbos to understand what I'm doing. I'm not just, here, even if you work $5 an hour, you work 8 hours, it's still $40 I'm missing out on if I work on Saturday. So, you got to take time. Not that $40 is a lot. You can't buy a dozen roses from this expensive guy. But it's something I was just looking into. Forget me, I'm just going off on it. What was I saying? Yeah, so, I take time out so it doesn't become habit for me. So
Orthodox is doing that considered illegal activity. Saying you're Orthodox, you're conservative, or you're Reform. It's that you keep Shabbos and you keep kosher. It's what you do. You have to be called Orthodox or conservative.
That's a pretty excellent form. Now I'm going to be real blunt on this, okay? Those of you who get offended, I want you to tell me you're offended, all right? But I only think there's one kind of Jew, to tell you the truth. I don't think there's anything called conservative reform. Listen, bottom line is in 100 years from now, people won't even know. Conservative reform will be some kind of history thing. And the only thing still be around is Orthodox. You know why? Because that's what people were before. And then when your grandparents came over from Europe, some of them said, well, you may disagree with me, but I hope I'm alive in 120 years to turn to you guys and kick your canes kind of and say, I told you so. Because it's kind of like a fleeting thing. What reform? I'm not. Well, I guess I am here to get all over them. I was going to say I'm not here to get all over them, but I am. I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't make any sense to me. If God created the heavens and the earth, and God gave the Torah, and He didn't put any asterisk by any of them words like keep Shabbos, and He didn't say, well, that'll end in 1840 when the conservative movement started. The reform movement. It wasn't like that little doily over there. The little doily. It didn't have it. It just said it. It didn't say if God can kill and gets revenge and gets mad and rewards you for the good, then there's got to be, there's no other. There's one kind of Jew, and a Jew is somebody who believes in the Creator of the universe. Now I know it's hard to wake up one day and you've never been taught about it, and wake up one day and say, well, it's Shabbos time. I got to keep Shabbos. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. See? So, you understand what I'm saying? So that's really hard. You haven't heard a word I said, really. That's okay. So, do you take offense to that, Rachel, that I tell you that there's no such thing as that they're going to die out in 100 years?
I take offense to it if your own personal opinion.
Which is probably better than yours in a way. No. Does anybody disagree with me? Raise your hand. I say conservative reform is done in 100 years. Everybody disagree with me?
Agree or
disagree with me? Eric, why don't you disagree with me?
I agree with you because if you look where it all started in Germany, the Reform movement. And the same thing happened in Germany 100 years later. They had a Holocaust there. And Jews tried to differentiate themselves from the regular population. The Reform Jews tried to make themselves just like the rest of the population. They still got rejected after all they did for Germany, and they all got wiped out there. And the same thing could happen here.
How many people believe, this is a good point. That's great, thank you. How many people believe that the same thing could happen here? How many people believe that the same thing that happened in Germany could happen here?
Germany was a democratic country too.
Why don't you believe that could happen, Jessica? You just didn't hear the question, I understand. Why don't you believe that it'll happen in America?
Well, the government
Are you kidding?
No.
What are you, 14, right? 15.
No, I think it's possible, but
You just don't think it'll ever happen. You think because we learned from the past, or it'll just never happen? Let me tell you a little history about the Jews. Yeah, Lane.
I don't think it's gonna happen because there's too
Wake
many,
up, pal. Listen, let me. Yeah, go ahead.
There's too many different types of people in America. You know, in Germany there was only.
Yeah, there's the Hispanics and the Cubans and the.
Well,
They're the same thing. Like
but there's more
The
people.
reason why I don't think it's going to happen is because I don't want to believe it's going to happen.
That's a good answer.
okay, that's both sides.
Yoni, you think it's gonna happen, huh? Why didn't you raise your hand when I asked you? You did? Why do you think it's gonna happen, Yoni?
I don't know, because I feel that there's a lot of anti-Semitism now, even though people don't realize it.
Who else? Let me see. What else? Renee? What do you don't think it's gonna happen, do you? You hope it does?
Wait, what?
You know, God's gonna throw down millions of dollars, everybody. I hope it does too. Yeah. Good answer, Renee. No. Renee, you think the same thing happened in Europe is gonna happen in America? You don't think so? Why?
Because I think...
No, I can't hear you. Like, I'm sure those guys down here are going, I wish I could hear her talking to you. What?
I just don't think it will.
You don't think it'll happen? So you have no real reset? You think it'll happen? You don't think it'll happen?
That's right.
Ellie, you don't think so. Why? Because you're in a nice, rich community, right? You don't have to tell us.
Oh, Chaim, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, don't you think people should be able to observe Shabbos whether they want to, that other people asking them, why don't you keep Shabbos or why don't you keep kosher?
Well, I'll tell you. Here's my answer. I'll give you my answer. I'll give you the answer because I knew it was going to come. Not that I expected the question, especially from a smart girl like you, Rachel. But is it a biblical obligation for me to keep Shabbos? I can't hear. Avi? Is it a biblical obligation for me to keep Shabbos? You know what biblical is, right? It's not a biblical? Yoni, is it a biblical obligation for me to keep, huh? Rebecca. Deborah. No, Deborah Wolford. Stacy Bull. Judy Rubin. Susan. Renee. Paul. Okay, so outside of Avi, almost everybody here knows that it's a biblical obligation. Is it a biblical obligation to, look, bottom line is this. Most, especially this new law that the Reformed Jews passed about anybody can be a Jew. If your father's Jewish, you're a Jew.
Mother.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, right. What? The Reformed say if your father's a Jew, you're a Jew. It don't matter if your mother's a Jew. Well, they're wrong. They missed the boat on that, okay? They're stuck somewhere in a Persian Gulf, tell you the truth. Because what they just did now, by giving non-Jews permission to marry Jews through reformed marriages, they're doing what Hitler couldn't do to us. See, so that's one reason why reform won't last that long. The second thing is, yeah, Rachel, it's my biblical obligation to ask you, why aren't you keeping Shabbos? If you actually believe in God and believe He created the universe, then it's my biblical obligation as a Jew to ask you that question, and I'll show it to you in the Chumash. You know, I'm responsible for you, okay? And although some of you guys I'd rather not take responsibility for, I'm here, so I have to. See, so yeah, my answer to the question is yeah. I don't think you don't have the right. If I met you on the street, I'll tell you a story. I was walking with my brother, okay, and this little girl, she must have been about 9 or 10. She was playing with this stick, okay, and she was Jewish, and she said good Shabbos to me. So, you know, she's just hanging out, and I said good Shabbos to her. She said, well, it's not Shabbos for me. I said, why? I said, you Jewish? And she said, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I don't keep Shabbos. So, oh, it's Shabbos for you, and I said, why don't you keep Shabbos? You know, because my parents don't. Because nobody ever told me about it. So I brought her to shul with me. Of course, they threw her out of shul. No, I brought her to shul with me. I never saw her again, but she came to shul because that was my obligation. That's a Torah obligation for me. So if I believe in Shabbos, if I believe that Shabbos is from the Torah, then this obligation of caring for my brother and sister and asking them, why aren't you doing what I think you got to do, That's my obligation too. It comes from the same place, see? So my answer to that question is, sure, maybe those bleeding heart liberal pigs like Phil Donahue think that you have a right to make a choice. But as far as I'm concerned as a Jew, you have that choice. You have the right to make that choice. I have to fulfill my obligation by at least asking you, why don't you keep, you understand? Hey, if you don't, look, I don't gotta, let's say you didn't keep Shabbos, and you decided you weren't sure if you wanted to. I don't have to live with that decision. You have to live with that decision. Shocky, who made the decision to keep Shabbos, you or somebody else? And who lives with that decision for the rest of your life? People may have answered your questions, right? But did they tell you you gotta keep Shabbos, and if you don't, I won't talk to you anymore? Yeah, Becky.
I disagree with that. I think that.
Well, that's all right. I just don't agree with you. Go ahead.
No, I think that it is a biblical obligation to keep Shabbos, and I keep Shabbos, but I don't think that it's anyone's obligation to
But that's from the same place that says I gotta keep Shabbos. It's the same book.
No, I think I don't think it's
Are you telling me, Becky, that there's some things you can do, some things you don't have to do?
No, Marie doesn't keep Shabbos, but I'm not going to go up to her and say, why don't you keep Shabbos? That's her business. As you said, she has to...
But no, that's your business. See, that's just the point I'm trying to make to you about peer pressure, see? Like, it has nothing to do with peer pressure, but that's the name of the group, so I'll call it that. Look, do you believe you have that obligation, Rebecca, to tell, why don't you keep... I mean, people don't do that, and that's, people don't say, well, how come you're not sleeping with that guy you're sitting next to, right? People say, why don't you sleep with that? They don't do that because it's not the thing to do. Right, but if everybody in the world walked around and said, why don't you keep Shabbos, why don't you keep Shabbos, then everybody would think that's commonplace. Like everybody in the world walks around dressed like Maureen. Like the modern homeless, right? So that's special. Isn't that funny, the modern homeless? So everybody in the world dressed like, so everybody thinks, well, Maureen, she's making a fashion statement. I say, Maureen can't get new clothes. She don't got no money. So everybody says, no, that's a fact. Cindy Lauper walks around, she's wearing this. And Madonna, she goes to thrift stores. Now everybody goes to thrift stores. And thrift stores, they sell it for $60 more than they used to sell it for. Because this tramp goes up there with no clothes on, and everybody wants to buy her clothes. So Madonna's making a fashion statement. If Madonna walked around and said, Rebecca, how come you don't keep Shabbos? The rest of the world would be going in this little sleazy outfit. How come you don't keep Shabbos? You see, so Becky Brodsky said to me, well, it's your right. It's not your right. See, you're probably Democrat, right? You're probably going to vote for Michael Dukakis or Jesse Jackson.
Yeah. So what else?
That's her business. It's not yours.
See, you're right. I don't have any right. I'm not. Look. You could tell me, go to hell, Chaim, bug up. You could do that if I asked you why don't you keep Shabbos.
I will.
I gave you the option just now, right, of saying leave me alone.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry.
Is a Jew any less of a Jew because they don't keep Shabbos?
Yeah.
Don't ask me, because I'm going to give you an answer you don't want to hear. See? See, I want you to understand this before I explain it. I told you, I like this controversy. I think it's great. Look. I'm not saying that if you keep Shabbos, that makes you Joe Jew. I mean, you're not John Q. Jew now, that you can walk around and start telling everybody what to do. Shh. But your foundation, well, look, I'm not asking you something God's not gonna say to you. You think God's gonna say, well, that was your right, Becky. You had the right not to keep Shabbos, and I'm going to reward you for choosing to ignore my command. He's not going to say that. He's not going to say that.
She's not saying that either.
No, I'll let you talk in 1 second, Rebecca.
I can't get away. I don't want to.
Yeah.
See, now you're all getting pissed at me. This is what I like. See, I like this stuff. He's not going to say to you, well, geez, I'm so happy you ignored what I said. Sure, I'm glad. No, I don't care you don't keep Shabbos. Go sit next to Maimonides up there. Go ahead. We got to see where you're not going to say that. He's going to look at you and say, why don't you keep Shabbos? Why didn't you keep Shabbos? You're going to say, well, my parents didn't. He said, well, you're old enough to make your own decisions. Chaim Katz asked you why you didn't. Why didn't you? Now, granted, Chaim Katz was no better of a Jew than you are, because he's learned more about it. I say if you learn more about it, you'd be an ignoramus enough to. Now you say, well, because I don't keep Shabbos, I'm an ignoramus. No, I'm saying you don't know enough. It's hard for people who don't know enough to do things like that. You don't know enough about kosher and stuff like that but you do it because you see a little square on a box and you say that's okay. See? But I'm not asking you a question God's not going to ask you. Don't think it's a free ride here. If you believe in God, there's got to be some kind of divine reference, that He's going to answer this question. Rebecca, do you think when you go to heaven, God's going to say to you, well, if you go, when you go to heaven, is God going to say to you, Rebecca, why don't you keep Shabbos better? You think He's going to say, well, why didn't you learn more?
Yes.
Why didn't you raise your kids better?
Yes. You're asking me all these questions that you know how
See, this is the standard answer. This is why she was elected regional president, because she gives the standard answer. This is why I answer. Becky, was that about me? Because you could say it. Was that about what we were talking about? So you're talking about something other than what we were talking about? Then get out of here. Yeah, I'm joking. What'd you say? It wasn't about this? Rebecca, you had an abusive comment. Come on, tell me. What'd you want to say?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I know. You were saying you disagreed with me or something, right?
No, because you were twisting her words around.
Whose words?
Becky's.
What did I do? She said.
You said that God wasn't going to reward her, and she said that. Wait a minute. And she never said that God was going to.
No, that was my own. Shut up. Sorry, Lane. That was my own. I didn't twist her word. I know what Becky said. Becky said it's your right. You have your own choice. Her question is, does that make you me a better Jew than you? No, I don't think so. But let me ask you something. What's my question? Okay. Let me ask. If you tell me what the better Jew is, all right? Don't we have a play like this, right? Who's a good Jew? Isn't there an NCSY play like that or something? I mean, right, it's a junior play. It started out as a senior play. That's how good we got that we made it a junior. Okay. Well, let's see it. Hey, stop. Do you keep Shabbos?
Oh my God.
Do you keep Shabbos? Yes or no? Come on, just answer the question. No. Why don't you get up here? Yeah. Need some wise guy advice. You don't know who the hell I am. Hey, great answer, gentlemen.
I think good advice.
I know they're good advice. I'm not. But they just answered wrong. Talk to Rebecca. She's got all the standard answers, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
Rebecca, I didn't miss her words. Well, I was talking to her, right? Renee Weinberg, answer this question. Who's a better Jew? The guy that goes to shul and davens, goes home, eats lunch, learns a little Torah, goes to sleep, gets up, goes back to shul, davens to God, of course. Goes eats Shabbos Shudas, which, by the way, is a biblical commandment. Then davens Marv, goes, has Malav Malchus, sits down, learns, watches the news, and goes to sleep. Or the guy who goes to synagogue, heads out with his season ticket to the ballpark, watches the Orioles lose, goes home, goes to Pier 7 in Annapolis, takes a boat ride, comes home, watches a Love Boat, and goes to sleep. Who's a better Jew?
I don't think you should judge it that way.
You can't say.
I'm giving you. Wait a second.
You can't say who's a better Jew. You can't say
The
that.
person that's going to the
Okay,
book.
wait. Okay, let's find out. Wait a second. We're going to find out. I love this stuff. We're going to find out what's the criteria of a Jew. Where do you get the definition of a Jew from?
I don't have a definition of it.
Well, let's make a definition so we can all understand what we're talking about. Well, is there any place where we can logically get a definition from a Jew?
Jewish person.
Let's find. Guys, okay, look, if you don't, you can leave anytime you want. I don't care. Okay, just don't. Yeah, you can go if you want. Just don't. Don't start to. Let's try to keep this as the conversation real intense, abusive stuff. I like this. Paula.
If your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish.
That's the definition of a Jew. If your mother's Jewish.
But
Is there a guideline to live by? Where do we get that definition from?
if you convert, then
Wait a second. Let's get to that in a second. Where do you get that definition from? You think the Torah made it?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Avi, where do we get that definition from? That if your mother's a Jew, you're a Jew. That's good, huh? Good Bob, I'm proud of you. Okay, so did you hear that, Rebecca? Where we got the definition from?
Just repeat what he
address
said.
Rebecca here. Let's define a Jew. Where would we get?
If your mother's a Jew, you're a Jew.
Got it?
I don't think you should say the person that goes to the ballpark.
Wait a second. We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to that. Let's define a Jew first, because some people here don't understand. Matt, you have a different definition of a Jew? No. Eric, what kind of guidelines should we use for this Jewish person born of this Jewish woman?
Yeah, I mean, the guidelines to live your life, or whether you're...
Well, the guidelines to be a Jew. I mean, there has to be certain you can't, you know, like, it's not like you're Puerto Rican and you're born from a Puerto Rican mother and you're Puerto Rican or half Puerto Rican. I mean, it's different. It's a Jew. It's totally different.
Right.
Because it's not a nationality, it's a way of life.
Right.
So now how would, see, Rebecca, we got an answer here. You don't even want to hear it. And that's probably why, see? I'm just joking. Don't think it sounds serious. You hear his answer? What kind of guideline can we use for this, Lane Gordon?
No, I had to answer the other question.
What's that?
About the two people.
We'll get to that. She's complaining about it first. You can get it later. All right. So, what guideline should we use, Rachel, to define a Jew?
Define a Jew.
Well, what guideline should we use to define a Jew?
If you believe in it, and
God.
if you I don't.
Okay, I don't understand your point here. Can any Joe be a Jew?
If they wanted, if they have to. Yes. Did you hear what she said?
You have to say it again.
If you like believe in it, then you have to show that you believe in it.
Did y'all hear that at the end?
Yeah.
She said if you believe in it, you have to show it. Well, how would you do that, Riffy? Well, how would you do that?
By doing the mitzvah.
That's a good answer. I'll take that as standard answer. By doing the mitzvah, by looking in the Torah and seeing what my guidelines are. If you're a Jew, there's guidelines to be a Jew. And, I mean, the same, you got your definition from the Torah, right? I mean, without the Torah, we wouldn't even know what a Jew is. So now let's look in the same Torah and say, well, this Jew now, what's he got to do in the Torah here? Let's look through the book.